guys, it's Mimberly and welcome back to the channel. So we're on not Xavier's, that's a wrong bloke. We're on Zayne's final anecdote here. After last one, I'm a bit scared to read this one. Especially because we all know how I reacted to the last one of Xavier's. And I'm a bit nervous, so we're just going to get straight into it because no messing around. Hopefully this one is not as long as the last one because too many big words overblew my brain. I have smooth brain with no lumps, as Kate would say. When Zayne first appeared, Georgie thought that he had seen the Grim Reaper. He and his mother cowered in a corner with no means of escaping, pursued relentlessly by a monster. Letting out a terrifying roar, the creature approached them. It wore human clothing and bore a human-like visage, but its veiny skin grotesquely bulged. Its pupils glowed a sinister, unnatural blue. Its aura was anything but human. Suddenly, his mother pushed Georgie away. With all of her might, she embraced the monster. And from beneath its skin, strange tendrils burst forth, resembling eerie blue hooks. They embedded themselves into her. Through the tears blurring his vision, Georgie saw a black figure enter the alley. Just as clouds parted, cold moonlight illuminated the person's black coat. He drew closer, his face expressionless, a sharp dagger in human form. "Help!" A kid's voice, young and shaky, cut abruptly through the dark, narrow hallway. The monster released the hooks in Georgie's mother and whirled around to pounce on the figure. A garbled roar resounded. A starved beast had spotted easy prey. The man took off his black leather glove on his right hand. Georgie only caught a glimpse of a thin beam of light shining between the man's fingers. It was shaped like a shard of ice. In the blink of an eye, it hurled itself toward the monster, piercing its heart. Frozen and nailed in place by an invisible force, the monster gazed down at its impaled chest, gasping for air. The man walked towards it. With each step, the tendrils of the monster fractured bit by bit. When he reached the creature, it collapsed. Its body convulsed a few times before becoming motionless. He bent down to inspect the corpse, then slipped his leather glove back on. The monster dissipated like mist, leaving behind only dark blue fragments. "Are you the Grim Reaper?" Georgie asked. The man's gaze lingered on the mother and son. His crystalline pupils gleamed with an inorganic luster under the moonlight. He didn't respond and turned to leave. The clouds once again hid the moon, and his shadow swiftly merged with the darkness of the alley. The second time Georgie encountered Zayne was at a convenience store. 1 month has passed since then. Actually, Georgie has observed him for several days. Zayne lives in an apartment nearby. His outings are unpredictable, and whenever Georgie tries to follow him to see where he goes, he always ends up losing sight of him. The only place Zayne consistently visits is this convenience store. He always picks up a box of chocolates, placed at the front of the shelf, and proceeds to check out, seemingly indifferent to the kind of chocolate. Georgie finally musters up the courage to approach Zayne after he finishes paying. Hello, we've met before. I'm Georgie. I know you come here every day to buy chocolate. This is imported chocolate. Here." The 11-year-old boy, noticeably smaller and fragiler than other children, lifts a large glass jar he's holding. Inside it are exquisitely wrapped chocolates in colourful foils. Looking up at the man towering over him, the boy asks, "Could you help me find the person who killed my mom?" "Oh." Zayne stares at the young boy, his expression unreadable. After a moment, in a voice as cold as ice, he replies, "That is something you should ask the police about." Detective Ivan thinks he's about to die when he sees Zayne for the first time. The man standing before him, known within the police department as Dawnbreaker, is a mysterious serial killer. He leaves no corpses behind, only scattered fragments of an unknown dark blue substance. If it weren't for his surveillance cameras that had captured footage of him committing the murders, these victims would simply be considered missing people. And unlike normal murders, this resembles complete erasure. The victims vary in gender, age, and identity, but the only thing they have in common is the shards left at the crime scene. This baffles Ian the most. The fragments, emitting a faint blue glow, remind him of a wanderer's protocore. Long before Ivan's generation was born, wanderers had appeared on Earth, and as Far back as he can remember, wanderers roamed the city, prompting people to spend most of their time indoors to avoid them. Many simple tasks were delegated to robots, and people indulged in VR to pass their remaining years. Ivan was told that wanderers were amalgamations of energy, so why do the victims leave behind a substance resembling a protocore after death? Is the material all that remains of the victims? Or could this mysterious serial killer be specifically hunting humans who possess such thing in their bodies? Using this as a criterion, the AI system identifies who will most likely be the next victim. By the time Ivan arrives, Dawnbreaker has already attacked the target. His cold face is hidden by his black coat. Ivan can't make out the sharp object the man wields. He fires his gun. The bullet doesn't hit the Wanderer, but Ivan's eyes widen when he realizes what's happening. The target, an elderly man who's close to dying, suddenly lunges at Dawnbreaker in one swift movement. Several hook-like tendrils erupt from the old man's skin, and one pierces Dawnbreaker's arm. Under the streetlight, the foreign substance on the old man's body glows a sinister blue which grows from his skin. Dawnbreaker doesn't even flinch. In his other hand, a slender beam of light appears again. This time, Ivan sees it clearly. It's a shard of ice. The moment it pierces the old man's chest, the tendrils on his body instantly shatter. He's discovered the murder weapon and the origin of the dark blue fragments at the crime scenes. Ivan raises his gun, but with a wave of the Dawnbreaker's hand, both Ivan's hand and gun are instantly frozen by blackened ice crystals. Pulling it, Ivan couldn't even finish the sentence. An icicle grazes his cheek, pinning his communicator to the wall behind him. The body on the ground dissipates into black mist, leaving Ivan dumbstruck. This resembles the unique way wanderers vanish after being destroyed. He wasn't human, Ivan mutters to himself. Dawnbreaker's indifferent gaze sweeps over him. Then he turns around, his black coat blending him into the shadows of the night. Since that day, Ivan has reviewed the surveillance footage from every crime scene, trying to find that black silhouette. But the individual is an intangible Agnida, vanishing into a jumble of pixelated images. However, Ivan's efforts aren't exactly fruitless. The identity of the latest Jane Doe has been revealed. She was a worker in an underground protocore factory and was laid off a few months ago. More importantly, she had an 11-year-old son named Georgie. And it just so happens an orphanage had recently filed a missing person report for a boy named Georgie who was under their care. Ivan's police intuition tells him that following this clue could very well lead him to Dawnbreaker. He's firmly convinced the next time they meet, he'll arrest this serial killer and bring him to justice. Okay, so from what it sounds like here then, it sounds like Zayne is being marked as like a serial killer, but they don't know who he is. And Zayne is hunting wanderers? Zayne isn't surprised to see the little boy at his apartment door. When he left during the day, he noticed the glass jar full of chocolates placed by the door like bait sitting in a trap. It waited for its prey to be ensnared. A small head peeked out, barely visible behind the stairwell. Zayne chose to ignore him and continued walking downstairs. When Zayne returns, it's already deep into the night. The little boy is asleep by the door, clutching the jar. His small head almost droops to the ground, hushed mumbles in his dreams. The only thing he can hear clearly is one word. Mom. With the hallway lights off, darkness envelops him. Zayne looks down at the curled up child. He reaches into his coat pocket only to find it empty. He ran out of chocolate. Zayne takes 2 steps forward and kneels down next to the boy. Georgie wakes up from the rustling, opening his eyes to a dark silhouette close by. Cold pale fingers twist the jar's lid. Panicked, Georgie watches a hand pluck one chocolate from it, unwrap it, raise it, and place it into a man's mouth. His eyes meet an emotionless gaze as coldness jolting him awake. Tentatively, Georgie says, Are you going to help me? Zayne silently stands up. Desperate, the boy tugs at the hem of Zayne's coat. You ate my chocolate, you accepted my payment. Zayne opens the door and walks into the apartment, his coat slipping from Georgie's grasp. However, the door doesn't close. Georgie lifts his head and sees him standing in the doorway, his hand resting on the door. Are you letting me in? Oh my god, this is 20 pages! After Georgie tentatively steps inside, Zayne lets go of the door and walks away. He sits on the sofa. God, my lips are dry today. Georgie looks around. The furniture lacks decorations and the furniture is extremely simple. The only hint of humanity is the faint cracks on the greyish-white wall, signs of age and neglect. In the centre of the living room is a holographic screen displaying what appears to be a very old TV show. On the screen, a man in a white coat is treating a patient. Georgie cautiously sits on the edge of the sofa and sneaks a glance at Zayne. The seemingly emotionless killer is now engrossed in an outdated TV drama. The scene is full of contradictions, gradually emboldens the young boy. "Aren't you tired?" Zayne asks. "What is this? It looks like a TV show from decades ago." In the room, aside from the dialogue from the TV drama, the young boy's voice passes through the quietness. "My mom used to say only rich people can afford to go to the doctor." Suddenly, Zayne gets up. Georgie shrinks back, afraid that he's about to be thrown out of the apartment. However, Zayne only takes the glass jar from Georgie. He returns to his seat, unwraps the chocolate, and puts it in his mouth. He eats them one after another, as if the chocolates were his dinner. Do adults really enjoy sweets like this? As Georgie thinks about it, his stomach grumbles. Zayne's gaze remains fixed on the screen, but he passes the chocolate jar to him. "Chocolate doesn't make me full," Georgie says. "What do you usually eat?" Zayne pauses, then stands up and opens the refrigerator. Georgie follows him and looks inside, surprised to see rows of bottles filled with nutrient solutions neatly stacked. "You live on these?" Unfazed, Zayne watches as Georgie, driven by hunger, takes a bottle and drinks it. The bland, flavourless liquid gives an immediate sense of fullness, but lacks the satisfaction of a real meal. Can someone who sustains himself solely on such a liquid be considered human? This question flickers through Georgie's mind as he watches the man who returned to eating chocolates on the sofa. Yet to label him the Grim Reaper seems too contradictory when he's clearly fond of something as so simple as chocolate. Georgie doesn't dwell on this question for too long. Having not slept soundly for several days, he seems to come to the overwhelming wave of drowsiness once he relaxes. When Georgie opens his eyes again, sunlight streams through the window into the living room, making the glass jar on the coffee table sparkle. And the jar, which was brimming with chocolates last night, is now only half full. Rubbing his eyes, Georgie sits up on the sofa and sees Zayne carrying a pot with a budding jasmine from the bedroom. Wearing a t-shirt, Zayne looks more like a college student who lives next door rather than the Grim Reaper in a coat. Georgie is stunned, watching him place the pot on the windowsill so it can bask in the sun. Zayne waters and preens the jasmine. As he gazes at the white bud, the sunlight reflects into Zayne's eyes, lending a soft glow to his otherwise emotionless pupils. "Do you like plants?" As Zayne continues to snip, he shakes his head. "Then did someone important give that to you?" Wonder if it was MC. Zayne glances down at the boy and remains silent. "What should I do to get you to talk to me?" Georgie's frustration in the endless silence nears despair. He picks up the glass jar from the coffee table, trying one last time. "You've eaten a lot of my chocolate, so you have to help me find out who killed my mom. It must have been one of those monsters that chased us before. Only you can help me." Zayne pauses. He puts down the gardening scissors and leaves the jasmine in the sun. Then he turns and walks into the bedroom. Perplexed, Georgie follows Zayne and sees him opening a closet filled with only black clothes. It's like a wardrobe dedicated to funerals. Aside from the wardrobe and bed, there's no other pieces of furniture in the bedroom. Next to the bed is a holographic screen. Unlike the outdated TV drama in the living room, this displays countless moving green dots. "What's that?" Unsurprisingly, Georgie's question is met with silence. Zayne, wearing his black coat once more, reverts to the Reaper-like appearance Georgie saw before. Georgie follows Zayne out of the apartment and they arrive at the convenience store. Oh my god, my nose. This time, Zayne heads straight for the refrigerated aisles, methodically scanning rows of various flavoured sodas. Eventually, he picks a bottle from the top shelf, his packaging unremarkable. "Is it any good?" Georgie can't help but ask. Zayne pauses for a moment and then grabs another bottle. He also slips the jar of chocolate into Georgie's arms before proceeding to check out. After leaving the store, Georgie takes a few sips from his soda. The flavour isn't anything extraordinary. Zayne opens his bottle and starts pouring it out. Before Georgie can react, the liquid solidifies in midair. It looks weird. People used to call it an old popsicle. Zayne looks at the popsicle in his hand and takes a bite. He appears to savour the taste. "So you like stuff other than chocolates and nutrient drinks," Georgie adds, even though it's still very strange. Zayne doesn't mind his comment and the two walk down the street. There aren't many people around. It's to be expected because wanderers are present and people prefer to stay indoors as much as possible. The city's outdoors belong to robots, wanderers, and weeds. With the chocolate-filled jar in his arms, Georgie follows Zayne. Zayne takes long strides and Georgie has to jog to keep up. Just as he catches up, Zayne suddenly stops and Georgie almost runs into him. He sees Zayne standing outside an abandoned plaza with overgrown grass. Following his gaze, a patch of jasmine flowers blooms amidst the decaying city. The vibrant white blossoms stand out in the desolate surroundings. Oh my god, my back. Zayne walks over to the bench facing Jasmine's and sits down. Touching the bench, Georgie realizes it's clean. Do you often come here? Zayne doesn't deny it and takes out a book from his coat pocket. Georgie sits down beside him, eating chocolates from the jar. Curious, he looks at the contents of the book. The cover is worn, the text faded. Georgie tilts his head and reads out loud. Lincoln City Travel Guide. Where's Lincoln City? Do you want to go there? Oh, so we're not even in Lincoln. Okay. Zayne grabs the chocolate from the jar and eats it, flipping through the pages of the book. Georgie noticed several marked locations in the travel guides: museums, ski resorts, parks, and some places that seem to be restaurant recommendations. Lincoln City Aksu Hospital. This looks like a place from a long time ago. Well, that's where he works now, so I should hope not. Georgie's book eyes widened. Is this book very old? As old as my grandpa? No, it should be even older than that, but I've never met my grandpa, or my dad for that matter. Zayne calmly glosses over the boy's mumbled words. Why are you interested in an old city? The boy looks up at him. Zayne stares at the nearby jasmine, off something fleeting briefly cracking his expressionless face. I often dream of that place. Oh god, why is this chapter labelled nightmare? Please don't tell me we're having another nightmare. Last night, Zayne dreamed that he and a girl who bought all kinds of snacks and even threw soda into the shape of a popsicle. Oh no. I know where this is going. Similar dreams visited him almost every night. In these dreams, he's a surgeon. His dreams keep overlapping with scenes of a doctor's life, and a constant reoccurring presence is a girl. He was 12 at the first time he had such a dream, but the dreams didn't happen in a particular order. They were fragmented. So when he was 12, he already knew the doctor in his dreams would meet that girl at 27. With how frequent these dreams are, he suddenly thinks that the doctor is him, or rather he wants to become the person loved by the girl in his dreams. He records some, hoping to find their traces in the barren city. The place called Lincoln City from years ago, the landmarks that can only be found in travel guides, the foods, flavours and plants in his dreams. He wants to experience them the best he can. And if it's possible, he wants his warm dreams to consume him. Zayne steps out of the bathroom, blood still flowing from his arm from the wounds inflicted by the abomination. He looks at his reflection in the mirror to see his scarred, riddled body. It's a sight he's grown accustomed to. As usual, he dries himself off and puts on his clothes. The boy is asleep on the couch again. Zayne runs his hand through his hair and grabs a blanket, tossing it over the boy. He sits down and watches the medical drama on the holographic screen. As he eats chocolate, the boy suddenly lets out a large scream. Georgie jumps up from the couch, gasping for air. I had a nightmare. Terrified, Georgie looks at the calm Zayne before gradually coming to his senses. I dreamt that there was a monster inside me and it burst from my chest. The boy's voice trembles, tears welling up in his eyes, and he gives Zayne a pleading look. My mom said that dreams are the opposite of reality. Is that true? Zayne thinks for a moment and presses a button on the remote. The screen suddenly changes from a medical drama to an animated film accompanied by a soft female voice. Long ago, there was a man named Zhuangji. He dreamt he was a graceful butterfly, but when he woke up, that feeling remained. He couldn't tell if he was a butterfly dreaming of being Zhuangyi or if Zhuangyi dreamt of being a butterfly. Georgie stares at the screen where elegant dialogue transforms into dancing butterflies and then a historical figure. Confused, he mutters, maybe I'm just a monster's dream? When will it wake up? The boy turns to Zayne. And what about you? You said you were dreaming of a place called Lincoln City. Who are you in your dreams? Zayne switches back to the medical drama where the protagonist is performing a very risky surgery. Do you dream of being a doctor? Zayne pauses and then nods. Then do you appear in that doctor's dream? Maybe to him you're also a nightmare. Zayne looks down at the boy who appears innocent and concerned. In the dim light, he can tell Georgie has a small prostitution and a bump under his eye. Georgie, staring at Zayne unblinking, can't help but feel a little scared. I was joking. Don't be mad. Behind Zayne's back, a blackened ice blade begins to form in his hand. We're not related, so I understand if you don't want me to. We're not related, so I understand if you don't want to help me find the killer. The boy lowers his head, unable to meet Zayne's gaze. But I have a request. Tomorrow is my 12th birthday. Can you celebrate it with me? I promise to leave afterward. Zayne is taken aback. The ice blade quietly melts away. Suddenly he stands up, turns off the screen and walks back to his room. Is that a yes? The boy's voice, filled with disbelief, resounds behind him. In Zayne's bedroom on the screen, a red dot begins to grow amidst the countless green ones. The coordinates of the red dot show that it's right next to Zayne. Just before the alarm rings, Zayne turns off the screen. Good night. His voice is cold. He closes the bedroom door. Georgie is a wanderer, isn't he? Oh no. That Georgie is a wanderer. It's the only explanation. The next day, Zayne goes through his usual routine of moving the jasmine to the windowsill to soak up the sunlight. He waters it. After that, he puts on a black coat and takes the boy with him. Zayne leads Georgie into a dessert place where the robots behind the glass window are diligently making cakes and pastries. Is this for me? The boy's face is filled with surprise. Zayne taps on the holographic menu and adds a macaron to their meal. He turns to meet the boy's gaze. I dreamt about it last night. The boy's eyes widen. The doctor in your dream ate a macaron? Another person did as well, Zayne says, taking a seat by the window. Georgie sits down with Zayne. Will the doctor also dream of you celebrating my birthday? Zayne looks out to the floor-to-ceiling window. Maybe. They're the only customers here. The robots play happy birthday and bring out a cake with 12 candles. Georgie's face lights up with a smile for the first time. Besides my mom, you're the first person to celebrate my birthday with me. He clasps his hands together and closes his eyes. My wish is to find the person who killed Mom. When he opens his eyes, a subtle blue glow emanates from under his skin. Georgie smiles at Zayne and blows out the candles in one breath. They devour the cake. A little bit of frosting accidentally lands on Georgie's face. It reveals a childlike innocence that matches his age. When's your birthday? The boy looks up. Zayne eats the colourful macaron. I don't celebrate birthdays. You've never celebrated your birthday before? The boy's eyes widen. I stopped after I turned 12. Why? The macaron's overwhelming sweetness fills his mouth, but Zayne still wants another. Zayne's dreams began on his 12th birthday. His adoptive father became an abomination, hook-like tendrils growing inside him. He attacked his wife and son. Zayne watched helplessly as his adoptive mother died before his eyes. When his adoptive father lunged at him, Zayne chose to use his evil. He stabbed the ice into his adopted father's heart. That was Zayne's first kill. It was also his first time freezing an abomination, preventing them from turning into wanderers. He's never celebrated his birthday ever since. Later that night, he dreamt of himself in a doctor's white coat treating a girl. Dreams have become his only solace ever since. Even after the cake is finished, Zayne doesn't reply. Determined, Georgie lowers his head. When it's your birthday, I'll bring you all different kinds of chocolate. Okay, so Georgie is an abomination, and if Zayne kills him using the ice, he's not going to turn into a wanderer. But, shit. Astonished, Zayne looks at the boy. Outside of the floor-to-ceiling window, the sun sinks into the horizon, casting a brilliant, melancholic glow upon the desolate city. The sunset is so pretty. Georgie gazes out of the window and all. I used to live with Mum in a dorm at the factory. It doesn't have windows, so I've only seen sunsets in VR games. Zayne suddenly asks, what if you look at the sunset and feel nothing at all one day? What's the difference between that and being dead? Georgie turns, displaying a maturity beyond his years. Mom used to say that dying with clarity is better than living like a corpse. All of a sudden, chaotic footsteps resound. Dozens of heavily armed police officers come into view, surrounding the dessert place with their guns raised. Bewildered, Georgie looks at Zayne. Detective Ivan walks in, raising his hand to show he's unarmed. We can negotiate as long as you let the child go. Panicked, Georgie stands up. We were just celebrating my birthday. Ivan looks at the candles and cake crumbs on the table, unable to hold back his anger. He's the person who murdered your mother. Oh shit. Zayne remains motionless. Taking this opportunity, Ivan steps forward and positions the boy behind him. However, when he turns him around, the boy is no longer looks human. A tendril below his eyes erupted through his skin, blood flowing down like crimson tears. Georgie? Ivan freezes. The tendril extends as if it has a life of its own and hooks into his arm. While pain shoots through Ivan's arm, the blackened eye shard in Zayne's hand has already pierced Georgie's chest. Everything unfolds before Ivan's eyes in an instant. Georgie lowers his head, seeing the blackened eyes blooming like a flower on his chest. He stumbles and falls to the ground, his last sight being Zayne kneeling beside him. Tears well up in Georgie's eyes. What happened? Did the monster wake up? Zayne gently closes the boy's eyes. Georgie dissipates into the black mist. The melody of Happy Birthday continues to echo in the dessert place under the setting sun. It's a final farewell. Oh my god. On a quiet hillside, 2 tombstones stand, one big, one small. Neither has photos or names. Zayne places a jar of chocolate in front of the small tombstone. He remembers the woman buried here. She approached him half a month ago, pleading for him to kill her. I know some wanderers were human once. But she was frail but determined. Some of my co-workers turned into monsters. Terrifying things grew from their bodies. They attacked people and then became wanderers. I think it's related to our prolonged exposure to protocols. But this factory has kept this information a secret. And when I tried to report it, they kicked me out. She extends her right hand where a coin-sized bump has already begun to form on her knuckles. At this rate, I'll probably turn into one of them, right? When you saved me and my son, I knew you were someone who hunts monsters. I don't want to become a wanderer. I'm afraid that one day I'll lose control and hurt my son. It's better to die with clarity than live as a corpse. With tears in her eyes, the woman smiles. Please, kill me. The sound of footsteps pulls Zayne out of his reminiscence as a thin, middle-aged detective approaches. He places a bouquet of flowers between the tombstones. Gazing at the small tombstone, Ivan's heart feels an indescribable heaviness. I've always wondered, did you know from the start that their child would turn? Is that why you kept him by your side? Zayne reaches into his pocket and pulls out 2 chocolates. He hands one to Ivan. Ivan hesitates for a moment and then takes it. I'm not sure how many people actually know, but the wanderers that roam the city now are not just energy clusters like they were in the beginning. Some of them were once human. My reports have been suppressed and my family has received death threats. The higher-ups don't want people to know. Zayne silently unwraps the chocolate and puts it in his mouth. How long do they want to hide it? Perhaps one day this world will be overrun by wanderers. Ivan suppresses the unease in his chest and takes a bite of the chocolate. All I can do now is stop the investigation on Dawnbreaker and destroy the records. That way no one will ever know of your existence. Hopefully this will buy you more time to prevent the world from collapsing. Zayne looks at the detective. I hope this will be our last meeting. Ivan forces a smile. Yeah, if I see you again, does that mean I'm going to turn into a wanderer? His expression becomes solemn, his smile gone. If the time comes, please don't hesitate to kill me. Ivan watches Zayne's dark silhouette fade into the blood-red sunset. He murmurs to himself, this time justice stands with the Grim Reaper. A familiar melody drifts through the darkness. It's Happy Birthday? Happy birthday, Dr. Zayne! The girl's clear voice rings out, her smile warm like the morning sun. Is he dreaming again? From now on, I'll always be by your side for your birthday. The girl's sincere yet slightly shy expression makes him unable to resist the urge to caress her cheek. He lowers his head and discovers her holding hands. He reaches out, but right before touching the girl's the cheek, she suddenly looks shocked. You aren't Dr. Zayne. Who are you? Zayne abruptly wakes up. A grey wall stares back at him. The alarm resounds and the holographic screen starts flickering red again. Zayne takes a deep breath. What did that dream mean? How did the girl see him? It's as though she saw through time and space, through his dreams, to realize he's not the doctor. Zayne's gaze sweeps over the windowsill. The jasmine quietly blooms under the moonlight. Oh my lord, these are just getting more and more confusing, intense, and also what's the word when something's intriguing? That's the word I'm looking for. Oh my god, that thing with Georgie broke my fucking heart though. Like, I suspected he was a wanderer, but then when it clocked and he turned... Oh my lord, this game is going to be the death of me. Okay, right, well that's Xavier and Zayne's done. Next is Raphael, huh? Okay, well let's get through Zayne's story arc first, and then we'll get Raphael's done before his story arc drops, because I feel like there's a lot of lore of Zayne and Zayne. Not Zayne. I feel like there's a lot more lore that Raphael is yet to drop, and he's from Lemuria, so God knows what's gonna happen there.